Do you remember any of the usual funny episodes of SpongeBob SquarePants that made you feel anxious or scared, or gave you the sense that something creepy was going on? There really were episodes like that, and now we're going to look back at 3 of them. The episode is gone. First, we see a typical morning for SpongeBob. He wakes up, gets dressed, puts some googles on Gary, calls him, but Gary doesn't come. SpongeBob searches the whole house, but still can't find him. Then he thinks Gary must have gotten up early, so he goes to Squidward and Patrick. They don't answer him either, but SpongeBob doesn't suspect a thing and just heads off to work on his own. At this point, we see that the town is deserted. There isn't a single resident in sight, and for some reason, the boats are all capsized. But SpongeBob doesn't seem to notice any of this, nor does he seem to realize that he spent the whole day alone in Krusty Krab. There were no visitors, nor were Squidward and Mr. Krabs there, even though he says goodbye to them when he finishes his shift in the evening. Well, to be more precise, he doesn't say goodbye to them, but rather to their empty seats, as it were. And it's only when he gets home and notices that Gary hasn't touched his food all day that he realizes he's gone missing. Panicked, he runs to Squidward and Patrick, but they're gone too. He speaks, and tries to find at least someone. But there's no one there, not a soul. He's all alone. SpongeBob decides that since things have turned out this way, he'll live out the lives of all those who've disappeared in their place. And then we see him trying on the personas of various acquaintances, and he seems to be having fun. But then, it's no use, I'm not Mrs. Pav. I can't. He takes the boat and has fun with it as much as he can, and even admits to it that he thought he'd go crazy without his friends. But the boat saved him. I thought I'd go crazy without all my friends and buddies around me. But it's... And Patrick looks like this. Basically, it seems like SpongeBob made him out of crab meat, so he's kind of fighting with this Patrick guy. You're paying too much attention to that little boat. It's replaced me in your life. And as it turned out, they were just celebrating their national holiday without SpongeBob. That's it. Well, first of all, that seems pretty cruel, because even Patrick, SpongeBob's best friend, and Gary, he's such a handful, we left just to get away from him. And not just for a day, but for a whole week. And during that week, we saw SpongeBob start to really lose his mind. And then he actually started to think that Patrick was his best friend. Seriously, Patrick, the kind of friend you can talk to. But the boat was a living creature that wanted to do something bad to him, and he had to escape from it. In short, SpongeBob ends up annoying Squidward so much with his cheerfulness that Squidward finally assigns him the task of taking out the trash. And that's where the first problem arises, because the trash can is quite a distance away, and SpongeBob starts to get a little scared. Well, he tells a scary story about Harry Minced Meat, who, just like SpongeBob, used to work as a cook at Krusty Krab. And so, one dark night, he accidentally cut his own hand while slicing a pie, and treated the wound with a rusty spatula. And then he got hit by a bus and was cremated. And ever since, every Tuesday night, his ghost appears at Craps to vent his furious rage. 3 signs will indicate that Harry is here. The first is a light that will be flashing. The second is a ringing phone, but there will be no answer on the line. The third... And then you know what he'll do. What? Are you sure you want to know? What? You're absolutely certain about this. What? Squidward admits it was a joke, and SpongeBob starts laughing, though he's already choking on his laughter. So some time passes at Krusty Krab. Everything seems fine until the lights suddenly start flickering. But I think Squirt himself is shocked by what's happening and didn't expect this. Next, we see a bus pulling up to Krusty Krab's, even though buses don't run there at night. Behind it, a strange silhouette appears with red eyes and a shovel for a hand. Squirt starts shaking in terror, SpongeBob starts shaking in terror, and this creature is already standing right outside the door, knocking on it with its paddle-like hand and walking into Krusty Krab's. As it turns out, it's just a fish looking to get a job with them. Yeah, it's a scary episode, in a good way, where they really try to scare us with the nighttime atmosphere and spooky stories. A sudden twist where the story isn't just fiction anymore, but seems to start becoming reality, and yet the ending is still satisfying and lets you relax. And by the way they played up the situation with the flashing light at the end is pretty funny. It turned out that it had been messing with the switch on the sphere. The episode, Squirtvert in the Land of Clarinets. The beginning is unusual right from the start. As Squirtvert drives to work, stones fly into his face from the car in front of him. Spongebob gets his finger caught in the door, Mr. Krabs is making annoying noises nearby, and the whole situation around him is turning out to be a bit of a mess. But he tries not to let it bother him, because after work he's going somewhere to play the clarinet. That's what gets him going, until one of the visitors drools all over his clarinet. Furious, he demands that Mr. Krabs provide him with a place to store his belongings. The guy and Guram stumble upon some old dirty safe. There's even a skeleton inside. Mr. Krabs must have locked someone in there. Anyway, we've got the safe. Now we just need to spruce it up. SpongeBob spends his entire shift cleaning it up and sort of improving and modifying it. Basically, he turned the storage lockers into a maze. At some point, the noises from the lockers became so unbearable that Squidward went to get his clarinet. He walks in, opens the drawer with the clarinet, but it's not there. There's a note saying it's in another drawer. Squidward goes to the other drawer, but there's a note there saying he needs to look in yet another drawer. And that's when things get weird. Squidward sees SpongeBob laughing and running through the hallways, ignoring him. He starts running after him, but keeps losing sight of SpongeBob. In the end, he finds an open bottom drawer, crawls inside, and there's a forest of giant clarinets. Sort of. He sees SpongeBob laughing again and running away with his clarinet, chases after him, and suddenly stumbles upon, yes, Eagle's talking head. She asks him why he came to this sacred place and says something about how clarinets shouldn't be persecuted and all that. Long story short, for some reason Squidward really got under his skin, so his head just snapped, and when it burst open, there was SpongeBob with a clarinet inside. Squidward tries to catch up with him again, but falls into some kind of room with 2 mirrors. And there, well, something really creepy happens. Anyway, that's it. Then things got totally surreal, and to be honest, I don't know how to describe it. Everything seemed normal, but Squidward runs after SpongeBob through a giant clarinet, ends up in a game machine, and then gets sucked out by a giant patty as his prize. He runs away, then Squidward gets sucked into a vacuum cleaner. As SpongeBob laughs, the vacuum cleaner explodes, and we see a view from space. Another chase scene, and next we see Squidward crawling out of the safe. SpongeBob walks over and tells him he'd been keeping the clarinet because Squidward had just hung himself up and was running around doing something or other. In a rage, Squidward locks SpongeBob in the safe and tosses him onto a bus heading who knows where. In short, whether it's the safe acting strangely in this episode, or SpongeBob with his laughter and complete disregard for Squidward, or Squidward himself who's caught up in this whole mess, I don't know. Maybe it's all in his head, or maybe he dreamed it, because I can't explain all the surreal stuff that was going on. But that whole episode with the alternate reality was actually a little unsettling, especially in the room full of mirrors. Which scenes in this cartoon make you feel scared, anxious, or something similar? Which ones scared you as a child, or still scare you now? For me, it was the scene. You haven't seen my Litka, I think that's what it's called. I can tell you about it in my next collection of scary scenes. But of course, if you could give it a like and follow me so I can see that you're actually interested. Until then, bye everyone.